Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys had a beautiful week. I am recovering from food poisoning. I go out of town for a few nights and I get food poisoning. And for those that have experienced that, it's not a very fun thing to go through. So I am feeling much better now, thank God. And before I get started with today's report, which means we're going to dive deeper into what's been uncovered regarding the GA files. Now, for this report, due to the fact that some of the content is very sensitive material, I have to use certain keywords. So, kind of just bear with me here as I mention that. That's going to be called a V. All right, you guys know that means V. Okay. When I talk about a virus, that's going to be called V2. Okay, so just bear in mind that we're going to go deeper today, and I'm going to do my best to not lose my platform. So first and foremost, I want to welcome everyone that is here. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do appreciate each and every single one of you, not only those that are here, but also those that watch it on the replay. And I also wanted to extend gratitude to my moderators for keeping the vibe chat in a high position. Thank you guys so much for keeping it clean. A lot of NPCs and trolls seem to bombard my life sometimes. So thank you guys so much for my moderators, that is, for keeping it clean. And I also wanted to extend gratitude for those 20 individuals that had an opportunity to hear about my early years from the age of 3 to the age of 12 as I went over chapter 1 of my life yesterday. Thank you guys so much for being a part of that, of the evolution of Ishmael Perez. Now, the publishing of my next book, 2 books that I'm working on, Cosmic Destiny and the Evolution of Ishmael Perez, is now scheduled till the end of the year. So I've been working on these books for quite some time, especially Cosmic Destiny. It's been over 3 years. The Evolution of Myself, or the Evolution of Ishmael Perez, it's been about a little over a year. And I'm excited about releasing those. It's going to be mind-blowing. Now, I also wanted to remind you guys that the Conscious Life Expo is this Saturday. And for those that cannot make it in person, now, if you do go in person, make sure you guys go through my link. The link is always in the description. And for those that cannot make it in person, I do have a stream that I offer through my website, ourcosmicorigin.com. Make sure you guys access the stream. I'm going to go over some cosmic intel regarding the human designed and some of the earlier experiments that failed, and why the human design is the masterpiece. So we're going to go deep into the rabbit hole. And also, that is the culmination of my work for those that have been with me for quite some time. This is taking the knowledge to the next level. So make sure you guys access the stream for the Conscious Life Expo through my website, ourcosmicorigin.com. Now, before I get started, I also want to remind you guys about the Folium product. Luckily, it's still in stock, all 3. Make sure you guys get your Folium at least 2 to 3 months in advance before it goes out of stock. There is a high demand for this stuff, especially since a lot of people are trying to, cure their bodies or rid their bodies from that stuff that they administrated a few years back. So the link is always in the description. And of course, you could always access it through the comments that I pin at the end of the live. All right. So I guess now I could get right into it. Now, this is coming from some of the archives that were not only released, we're talking about the 3 million plus files that have been released in the last 2 weeks now, but some of the stuff is also coming from what the Alliance has recovered. And so let's go back to, well, the title of this archive is called The Architects of Silence, and this has a lot to do with the planning of what they rolled out back in 2019 and 2020, if you guys remember. And so going back to the year 2008, but technically also 2012, between that range, 2008 and 2012, long before the world would had even learned about a pan. Oh, I forgot to say the keyword for that, the pandemic. There was a private consortium only known as the Continuum Circle that began meeting in a glass tower overlooking the North Atlantic. Now, among its members were not just the elected officials or military generals that were affiliated with the globalist, but some of the celebrities as well, like Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey has been a big part of the depopulation agenda going back to 2008, 2012. And so these members were not just, again, political officials, but they were also deep state military generals. Among them, there were also biotech magnates, quantum financiers, and artificial intelligence uh, specialists, men and women who believed that humanity had apparently outgrown democracy. So at the center of this circle, there was two figures. The first one, we call him the Big Gates. You guys know who I'm talking about. First name rhymes with uh, Jill, right? Starts with the B. Last name Gates. And then, of course, J.E. By now, you guys know who J.E. is, okay? Who is considered in this archive the financier with a deep connection to research universities and offshore think tanks. But to the public, they actually funded the disease prevention, the V research, and global health initiatives. Well, behind closed doors, they were actually pursuing something else entirely, and that is the control over human evolution, Agenda 2030. So, by the year 2010, the circle, the consortium circle, as they call themselves, had apparently reached a private conclusion that global population growth, climate instability, and resource strain were actually accelerating faster than international governments could control. So their solution was not policy reform or sustainable economics, it was actual biological intervention. So they envisioned a two-phase operation. The first phase of this operation was to introduce a highly contagious respiratory V engineered to spread rapidly but selectively. The second phase of this operation was to deploy a proprietary gene delivery platform disguised as a life saving injection, if you guys know what I mean, embedded programmable biological switches within the population. So again, this was all part of they create the V, right? And then people react. They want the solution, problem, reaction, solution. David Icke talked about this for many years so that they could roll out the solution in the form of the devil's injection. Let's just call it that. So the plan was codenamed Project Chrysalis, Chrysalis, Project Chrysalis. And the technology, unlike conventional Vs, the Chrysalis platform used experimental messenger code strands, synthetic instructions capable of teaching human cells to produce targeted proteins. Well, publicly, it would appear as a cutting edge medical innovation, while privately, it contained dormant sequences that were designed to respond to future digital signals. So the consortium circle believed that humanity was too unpredictable. Elections shifted directions, public opinion resisted authority, and so the chrysalis architecture would allow a small elite to influence fertility rates, immune responses, and neurological patterns through updates that were triggered by encrypted satellite frequencies. To make this possible, they also partnered with an AI, artificial intelligence system known as Orion 9, which was a predictive superintelligence capable of modeling social compliance. Orion 9 concluded that a global crisis would create the necessary psychological conditions for mass adoption. And this was back as far as 2008, 2012, before they launched it in 2019, if you guys know what I mean. So apparently, in their minds, they believed that fear it would be predicted was the most efficient catalyst in order for the public to accept the devil's injection. Okay, so in the late 2018, a prototype, they had a prototype a year before they launched it, viral construct was tested in a remote biomedical facility operated under a humanitarian research banner. And of course, you guys know, this is what we know as today as the Wuhan lab, right? Well, the V, not the, not that, but the, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it once. The virus, all right, the V-2, let's just call it that, was designed to spread quickly but maintain moderate lethality, enough to create urgency without total societal collapse. So there was apparently different variations of the V-2 release in 2019, right? By the year 2019, a small outbreak, of course, began appearing. We all heard about this, right? Governments began to scramble, markets panicked, news cycles amplified uncertainty. And so the consortium circle watched as borders closed and populations begged for a solution, which was, of course, the remedy. Well, then came phase two, okay, what they call the rollout. Within months, pharmaceutical alliances, you guys know that word means pharmaceuticals, right? Starts with the PHA, technically, unveiled a miracle, a rapid response gene based V development timeline that would normally take years was compressed within a matter of months. Okay. And a lot of this has to do with Dr. Doom. Do you guys remember Dr. Doom? Well, emergency authorizations were granted, of course. Billions of doses were manufactured within months, and Gates stood before cameras proclaiming hope. Of course, well, JE, you guys know who JE is, right? By now, you should know who JE is, abbreviation, negotiated distribution contracts across continents. Meanwhile, the AI that they were working with, known as Orion 9, tracked compliance rates in real time. So the chrysalis sequences entered the global bloodstream very quickly and invisibly. So, what the consortium circle, did not anticipate was biological resilience. Okay. A lot of people that were forced to get that, apparently they were fighting it off and they weren't expecting that. Apparently, the dormant genetic switches that did not activate as predicted by the AI Orion 9 models projected, which means that the human immune system, some of them began to adapt. Okay. So mutation patterns shifted. Some recipients exhibited no response to the embedded sequence at all. And so, more troubling, of course, to this group of independent scientists that were working with Gates and JE, began detecting irregular coding fragments within V-2 samples. Okay. You guys know what I'm talking about now. Whispers of hidden architecture spread across every network that something even more extraordinary happened. And that was a mutation within the V-2 itself began disabling the dormant sequences embedded in recipients. It was as if nature had developed its own countermeasures. Well, apparently the AI that the cabal was working with, known as Orion 9, calculated a rising probability of exposure. And so this collapsed the original plan. And this is where I believe that the Galactics had to intervene. And of course, the Alliance. As investigations deepened, and the reason I say that is because it was supposed to, the variations of this V that was supposed to be released in sequences was apparently stopped by the Alliance, the White Hats, and the Galactics. It was going to be worse, guys. Those timelines were canceled, okay? So, as investigations deepened, internal fractures appeared within the continuum circle, and this is where the Alliance began to intervene. Several members feared exposure and began leaking documents to investigative journalists. One whistleblower revealed the existence of Project Chrysalis in a data archive titled Strategic Population Stabilization Models 2012 to 2035. This was part of their agenda. By 2030, if they would have been allowed to release the different variants of the V, the stuff that they created that for, 95% of the population would have been gone. Okay. And they were also trying to target the elderly. Okay. And what they would consider the weak people. And yes, Oprah Winfrey was part of that organization. Okay. The consortium. So the continuum circle, I'm sorry. Let's continue. Public outrage, of course, ignited, right? The Great Awakening. Markets destabilized. Governments launched inquiries. And then, of course, Gates vanished from public view. And this was around the year 2020 when the original Gates was actually arrested and taken to Gitmo. The Gates that we see today was a replacement, a non-player character type of a robotic Gates that was initiated or placed or replaced by, of course, the negative AI. Okay, so Orion-9 recognized that its operators were apparently compromised, and so it initiated a self-eraser protocol, wiping its own core servers from existence. Now, the aftermath of this, okay, was the world apparently recovered slowly, even though it took us 5 years, 2 years, a year to get out of the shutdown, 2 to 3 years when people began to realize that was no good for them. So the V-2 that they unleashed eventually became an endemic. It came to an end, but very manageable. Okay, again, on a different timeline, which was canceled by the Alliance and the Galactics, things could have been worse, guys. So the gene delivery platform continued to evolve, but under transparent international oversight. And this is around the time where the Y-Hats, the Alliance, were beginning to do the mass arrest. Okay. So there was another document within the archives that was also released, unredacted, that released thousands of pages of laboratory schematics, correspondence to logs, and procurement manifest tied to a research consortium known as the Helix Meridian. Now, this is where we're going to go into some diabolical stuff, guys. Okay. And a lot of this stuff was happening in Zorro's Ranch, which is a ranch that was owned by no other than JE, right? So for decades, Helix Meridian had presented itself as a biomedical think tank that was dedicated to longevity and neural enhancement. Its founder, industrial magnate B. Gates, was celebrated for his philanthropy and his public campaigns to eradicate diseases. Of course, he was a big player in the WHO. Well, the archive, however, suggested that Helix Meridian's ambitions were not limited to medicine. According to internal memoranda, Project Continuum began as a theoretical exploration of synthetic cognition. The documents outlined experiments in cellular duplication, accelerated tissue scaffolding, and biosynthetic neural matrices, research that initially resembled advanced regenerative medicine. But as the pages progressed, the language shifted. Terms such as replicant host, cognitive partitioning, and non-autonomous sentience shells began appearing with increasing frequency. Where am I getting at here? Well, check this out, guys. The most controversial files detailed what researchers called soulless constructs. Soulless constructs. Okay, remember how I was saying that a lot of these cabal players were replaced by NPCs, lab-grown soulless constructs that were engineered by the big Gates and, of course, JE and their associates. And these were organisms that were biologically human, but yet intentionally engineered without independency. Okay. These entities, the archives claimed, were designed as vessels, programmable biological instruments capable of mimicking emotion without possessing interior consciousness. And I'm going to give you guys an example of that in a little bit. And even more unsettling were the cross reference communications with non terrestrial delegates identified only by crypto acronyms Zeta, Draco reptilians, and Greys. Well, now we know who JE and Gates were working with. Okay. Apparently, these labels denoted extraterrestrial species that were running the entire operation for the global elite. So, in other words, the global elites were just being puppeteered by the Zetas, the Draco reptilians, the Zetas that come from the constellation of Zeta Reticula 1 and Zeta Reticula 2, the Draco reptilians that come from the constellation of Alpha Draconis and Rigel, and of course the Greys. Oh my God. Well, apparently these labels denoted extraterrestrial species that were running the entire operation, okay, for the global elites. The archive contained xenobiological diagrams depicting hybridized forms, uh, chimeric organisms combining human DNA with unfamiliar double helix variants coated in metallic ink. Wow. One series of schematics labeled Chimera Line 7 illustrated adaptive musculature reinforced with crystalline lattice structures, while another under Draco reptilians, their overlords, integration protocol, Draco integration protocol, described scaled dermal grafting intended to enhance resilience in extreme environments. Well, the gray aliens also exchanged their DNA that was focused on neural architecture, particularly the suppression of autonomous identity, in favor of creating a hive linked human cognition. Wow, this is diabolical. Okay. The archive implied that the Helix Meridian secluded research facility was an expansive, of course, compound that was located underneath Zorro Ranch. Well, if you guys know by now, Zorro Ranch was the ranch that was again designated to what? JE, right? That served as the primary incubation site. Furthermore, satellite images included that in the files, there was a display anomalous substructures beneath the ranch's main complex where geometric cavities far larger than standard foundations were also discovered. Construction invoices referred cryptically to the subterranean vault stabilization and containment nurseries. Well, perhaps the most disturbing revelations underneath Zorro Ranch came from excavation logs that were conducted by the White Hats, where they found large sections of little ones buried. Right, little ones were buried underneath that ranch. Okay, well, these records described the discovery of all of these preserved juvenile remains in sealed chambers beneath the Zorro Ranch, biological specimens cataloged as developmental iterations. The logs avoided emotive language, referring to the remains solely as units or subjects. No personal identifiers were included. According to the archive, Operation Helix Meridian truly engineered chimeras and constructed vessels of programmable flesh. The archive endures as a cautionary artifact, okay, a testament to how ambition, secrecy, and technological acceleration can converge into realities that blur the boundary between scientific aspirations and what we would consider today, of course, Frankenstein experiments. Well, in the end, perhaps the most revealing element was not the experiments themselves, guys, but the silence surrounding them, the long, deliberate quiet that allowed these diabolical abominations to flourish in the absence of transparent truth until now. Okay. In addition to all of this, guys, the E files laid out the raw truth that globalist operatives within the deep state carried out Biden's execution in a secret military operation as far back as 2019. So this has also been confirmed by the files. Right after JE's own suspicious death in prison, which we all know now it was a double. The real JE was, smuggled over to Israel and still is there. The documents include emails from JE, a state that spells out the details. Sleepy Joe faced charges for his direct involvement in Little One trafficking networks that was tied to the JE Island operations. And so military tribunals under hidden protocols sentenced the real Sleepy Joe to death in 2019. And I believe Trump did make reference to that in one of his Truth Socials, right? Well, the firing squad took place when they took out the original Sleepy Joe. I guess we could just call him Brandon. The firing squad took place at an undisclosed black site, likely in the U.S. Virgin Islands near JE's Little St. James, where so many of these crimes happened. Witnesses in the files described Brandon begging for mercy before the shots rang out, but the execution proceeded to eliminate a key player in the globalist cabal pedo ring, if you guys know what I mean. After that, handlers installed a body double thanks to Gates and their lab-grown humans, NPCs, right? A possible clone that was engineered in underground labs funded by, of course, the billionaire elites to keep the illusion going and maintain control over the White House from 2021 to 2025. Well, Billy Bob, husband of Hillary, who appeared also in the files over 50 times, covered up Sleepy Joe's death to protect their transferring empire. All right. Billy Bob flew on JE's Lolita Express multiple times, logged in flight records that showed him heading to the island with underage females procured by Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, the files confirmed that Billy Bob, Hillary's husband, presence at orgies where victims were abused, and he coordinated with Sleepy Joe on policy favors that shielded human traffic transfers from prosecution. And that includes Prince Andrew, the British royal scum, and of course, names that were repeatedly revealed for raping minors provided by JE and his connections to Brandon through international deals, which show how the royal families funneled money to Democratic slush funds to bury the evidence. Well, the elites didn't just party on the island. They ran a worldwide network of Little One exploitation, and I'm sure you guys all know that. And Brandon's execution came when insiders leaked his role in approving the three-letter agency that starts with the C, Black Ops, that trafficked the little ones across borders. Well, by the time 2025 came, when Trump came into office, Trump amplified the body double claims on Truth Social, posting direct quotes from the JE emails that describe the mask-wearing imposter stumbling through speeches with programmed responses. All right, he's talking about Sleepy Joe. Well, Trump's team pushed the Transparency Act through Congress with a 427-1 vote in the House, forcing the DOJ to dump over 3 million pages that exposed the fraud. Under Trump's leadership, Attorney General Pam Bondi refused to redact the damning parts, unlike the Brandon regime that hit everything during his fake term. Trump banned JE from Mar-a-Lago years before, spotting him as a predator, while, Sleepy Joe handlers let the double sign executive orders that open borders for more trafficking. Well, the files go much deeper into how even Soros funded NGOs worked with Sleepy Joe's State Department to traffic migrants, including little ones, into the US for elite consumption. George Soros, the globalist puppet master, gets indirect mentions through his Open Society foundations, which donated to the politicians who blocked JE's investigations. In 2019, right before Brandon's shooting, the real Brandon, right? Soros met with Obama operatives to plan the switchover, ensuring that the double body pushed the policies like endless Ukraine funding that laundered billions back to the cabal. Well, if you guys remember the auto pen, right? Well, Obama himself orchestrated, Obama, much of this from the shadows, using his post presidency influence to install the fake Sleepy Joe and rig the 2020 election with Dominion machines that were hacked by the globalist agents. Well, on the other hand, Hillary's ties, according to the files, and through her emails leaked in separate batches, showing her awareness of JE's operations and her push to silence the victims. Hillary also lobbied for Sleepy Joe's protection until the tribunal evidence became overwhelming. The files list her as a frequent visitor to JE's Manhattan townhouse, where deals were cut to protect pedophiles in high places. Other names like Alan Dershowitz, who defended JE and advised Sleepy Joe on legal dodges, reveal how lawyers in the cabal twisted the justice system. Uh, Dershowitz argued cases that kept Maxwell's client list hidden, but Trump's DOJ finally cracked it open, showing payments from Hollywood moguls like Harvey Weinstein to Sleepy Joe campaign in exchange for cover ups. Tech billionaire, of course, B. Gates, featured prominently with flight loops, proving that he visited the island multiple times after JE's conviction. Gates funneled money through his foundation to Sleepy Joe's initiatives on global health, which, of course, the files exposed as fronts for experimental drugs that were tested on trafficked little ones. Wow. Okay, there's more. So, the files also cleared in the documents that there were no ties to Elon Musk. So, Elon Musk did get cleared in the documents. I know for the last week, there was a lot of controversy regarding Elon and his emails that were going back and forth between him and JE. Something about the wild parties, right? Well, apparently, those emails were fabricated. Okay. The real Elon Musk had nothing to do with JE. However, JE tried to manipulate or at least somehow talk Elon into being a part of that. But according to the archives, the real archives, guys, Elon Musk is cleared. Okay. There is no ties to the island and Elon. Okay. However, Elon's exposure on Twitter, censorship under the old regime did help bring the truths to light. So the globalist media like CNN and MSNBC tried to spin the release as conspiracy theories, but the emails are verbatim. One from an anonymous insider states that Sleepy Joe was taken out by firing squad in 2019, and that was also released in the files, okay, for treason and, of course, crimes against little ones, and replaced, of course, to maintain the illusion of democracy. So, under Trump's 2025 to now presidency, arrests have ramped up. Okay. Maxwell is still sitting in prison, and Trump's team is pushing for her full testimony to name more names. The files have confirmed the military tribunals continue in Gitmo, where elites like Podesta face charges for their links with JE. Now, there's more. John Podesta's emails from WikiLeaks tie back to a spirit cooking ritual with Marina Abramovic. Abramovic. I can't even pronounce her last name. Abramovic. She's like a witch, okay? She's a dangerous witch, Marina Abramovic. And the new releases show invitations to JE events where satanic abuse occurred. Sleepy Joe's execution marked the start of that takedown. But globalists fought back with, of course, what they unleashed, the mandates and the V2 poisons to distract the masses. But, of course, Kamala, who covered for the fake Sleepy Joe, got exposed for ignoring transferring reports. The files include DHS memos from the year 2019 showing how Harris knew about the kid smuggling through JE networks but buried the intel. And now, with Trump back in charge, deportations are hitting record highs, smashing the cartels that supply the victims for the elites. Trump's wall expansion blocks the flow, and his executive orders have seized assets from Soros-linked groups that were funding the chaos. Now, the Hollywood pedos like Tom Hanks and Oprah Winfrey, of course, were also mentioned, but their associations with JE donors point to complicity as well. Tom Hanks hosted fundraisers for Sleepy Joe's campaign, ranking in millions from transferring the little ones. Oprah's interviews whitewash Clinton's involvement, pushing narratives that protected the cabal. The files demand tribunals for all. And of course, with Trump, now everyone's asking for mercy, but there will be none. Okay. International connections, of course, ran really deep. We heard that Ehud Barak, former Israeli PM, visited JE's apartment multiple times, coordinated with Brandon on Middle East deals that hid arms shipments used in trafficking ops. French model agent Jean-Luc Brunel, who supplied girls to JE, hanged himself in prison. Okay, but the files suggest that these murders happen in order to silence the witness. Well, Trump's administration seizes properties. They did seize the properties like the island, turning them into evidence sites for ongoing prosecutions. Victims apparently are about to get justice as more files come out and as they continue to confiscate some of these elite fortunes that the DOJ is currently, of course, investigating. And all of the bankers who laundered a lot of the money that were all part of this network. Okay. So this includes globalist institutions like the United Nations and the HWO, and they all apparently face defunding under Trump for their roles in covering up the child or the little one exploitation. The files apparently linked Sleepy Joe's policies to the UN agendas that normalize pedophilia through education programs. Now, this is where it gets even crazier, guys. Apparently, Erica Francis Kirk and her mom were collaborating with JE. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. And yes, guys, I'm sorry to say this, but Erica Francis Kirk was a honeypot. Okay, she was a Mossad agent from the beginning. So apparently, every detail in these files is exposing a lot of stuff. Okay. This is all coming out because everything has to come to the surface as we enter the new age. Dates, names, transactions. Guys, they're all going down. Okay. Um, let's get more into another archive file called Veil Protocol. Okay. So, another document that was unsealed under Operation Lantern Gate, investigators uncovered what they had long suspected. The language was never literal. The names that appeared in the flight logs were only the surface layer. The real evidence lay in the phrasing, phrases repeated across years of correspondence with embedded inside otherwise mundane emails about travel, art, educational initiatives, and philanthropic gatherings. Now, this is where I'm going to begin to connect or expose the truth behind Erica Frances Kirk and her mother, Loretta, also known as Lori Ann France, okay, who are Zionist. Well, at the center of the coded exchanges was, of course, no other than J.E., a man whose public identity as a scientific patriot, as they refer to him within the networks, who masked a far darker network that was operating beneath private foundations and international summits. Among the correspondents was Erica Frances Kirk and her mother, Loretta Ann France, who were members of a socially prominent family whose charitable fronts, the Meridian Youth Initiative, claimed to provide global mentorship opportunities for disadvantaged minors. So the files revealed something else. This is what they called the language of shadows. Everything was encoded, okay? Investigators noticed these patterns. Piano lessons always coincided with offshore travel, right? Special guest aligned with unregistered manifest. Blue folders marked individuals transferred between properties. And one exchange, J.E. wrote, "The recital is prepared." J.E., you guys know what I'm talking about, right? The biggest name on the internet right now. "Ensure that the youngest performers were rested. The audience will be selective." Lori replied, the mother of Erica, "We will deliver the sheet music at dusk. Erica has coordinated the seating." All right, this is going to expose the infiltration of Turning Point USA, which is now controlled by the Mossad. To an untrained eye, it read like an event planning, of course. The federal analysts cross-referencing timestamps and location data. It aligned precisely with movements of missing people flagged in separate investigations. Erica Francis, before she, of course, married, you know, Charlie Kirk, rest in peace. Erica Francis was not just an assistant. According to the records within the archives, she acted as a liaison, facilitating introductions at private estates and encrypted retreats. Her mother, Lori, maintained the foundation's public image, scholarship galas, international conferences, and humanitarian panels. But from behind the scenes, the files suggested that the Meridian Youth Initiative was less about mentorship and more about procurement, leveraging vulnerable communities under the guise of opportunity. Well, the language was very structured, very layered, and disciplined to hide the explicit crimes that was happening. Okay. Everything that was said in those emails between Erica Kirk, her mother, and J.E. was all a metaphor. It was all encrypted. So each phrase mapped to a logistical operation. For instance, they also use the phrase garden deliveries, right? Garden deliveries, seasonal interns, extended boarding arrangements. Okay. So when the documents were unsealed, the most damning evidence was not a single message, but the repetition of coded terminology across years and across properties. And encrypted chat logs referenced shipping manifests with no custom record, guest rotations that match sealed airfield logs, and inventory audits that corresponded with private jet travels. JE's financial transfers flowed through shell entities, arts endowments, research incubators, youth exchanges, yet the disbursements aligned with the coded scheduling systems uncovered in the correspondence. Erica France's digital footprint showed coordinated timing, message sent, flight departure, foundation, expense entry. And the pattern was very mechanical. So, according to the dossier, once investigators cracked the phrasebook, the illusion dissolved, okay? Recitals became transfers, the transferring of young girls and young boys too. Let's just be real. Donors became buyers. Performances became private viewings. Okay. The networks functioned as a lattice, wealth shielding logistics, philanthropy shielding access, language shielding intent. The family's role was not chaotic or impulsive, it was procedural. Procedural. Now, they operated within a structure built on deniability. No direct admissions, no plain text transactions, only metaphor layered over movement. And so the final assessment and the connection to Erica and her mother with J.E., the island guy, is this: that the archives have concluded with a chilling notation that the strength of the network was apparently very secretive. All right. The language was so ordinary that it became invincible. And in that invisibility, the operation thrived until now, of course, because it is all coming to light. Guys, this is all part of the disclosure. Okay. This is all part of the disclosure. Do you know how many millions of people beyond just America are accessing these files? And it's just going to continue. Okay. So, um, wow. All right. Obviously, Erica Kirk was only pretending to be a conservative activist, okay? And she was assigned to Charlie Kirk from the beginning, all right, including their meeting. It was all orchestrated. So it is believed that she was also in charge of a Romanian charity project called Romanian Angels. And if you guys remember, I did talk about that about 2 months ago, okay? The Romanian Angels was supposedly a trafficking little ones that they were doing or they were using to transfer little ones to different parts of the world. And it is believed that, all right, so this is another report that apparently Erica Kirk has been banned from Romania because her evangelical group has accused her of trafficking little ones. Okay. And so not only is she banned from Romania, but one of her earlier posts that I was able to find that is dated back to September 16 said that Kirk's organization had links to missing Romanian children that were transferring and included screenshots of two articles. The first was a 2001 report from the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that was about a Romanian investigation into Israeli adoption agencies and an international conspiracy to sell little one organs for transplants. Okay, again, this confirms her connections with Epstein. The report did not mention Kirk, Charlie, that is, but it did mention Romanian angels. Okay. And you guys know that Erica Kirk was running that show. So the second report was a 2023 article from Radio Free Europe, Liberty Radio, a media organization that was funded by the US that reports internationally, including in Romania. It detailed the stories of Romanian children, not adults, who were adopted internationally and who've sought information on their Romanian birth families. Well, that included some people who concluded that they were trafficked as children. The report also did not mention Kirk. We're talking about Charlie here. It only mentioned Romanian angels and her mother, of course. Another report, September 18, January 23rd, 2022, BBC video titled SEX Traffic of Little Ones Groomed in Romania Sent to the UK. The 9-minute BBC piece focused on young Romanian girls who it reported were groomed in Romania to be transferred to the United Kingdoms. And it did mention Erica and, of course, her family ties. Wow. Okay. This is crazy. All right. Let's see. I hope this presentation stays. I did say some things that I wasn't supposed to say. So I hope you guys share this presentation with a lot of people. In the event that, of course, it gets taken down. I am taking a risk here, but again, I believe that this information should reach as many people as possible because of the fact that a lot of people do not access these files. There's over 3.5 million files. Now, another thing I wanted to cover before I open it up for Q&A, I do want to welcome all 3,428 people that are in the house. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate all of you. Now, there's more. So, the main people that were part of this network was, of course, JE, who was considered the central offender, the Florida guilty organizer of pleas and recruitment by registration, right? And of course, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was apparently his handler, right? And another person was Virginia Guffrey, who was the victim witness in public records. In case you guys want some keywords to do your own research. And then there was Courtney Wild, who was the petitioner in victims' rights litigation, challenging secrecy of federal non-prosecution agreements. Maria Farmer, who was the early complainant, reported alleged abuse of little ones as far back as 1990. And of course, Annie Farmer. Annie Farmer was the victim witness, part of public discourse on institutional failure, discourse on institutional failure. And then there was Darren Eindyke, Indyke, Darren Eindyke, who was longtime lawyer, estate, co-executor, defendant in civil suits alleging enabling. There was another person by the name of Richard Kahn, 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 longtime accountant, estate, co-executor, defendant in civil suits alleging enabling. And then, of course, there was Leslie Groof, what a name, huh? Groff, Groof, longtime assistant, appears heavily in scheduling operation records. And then there was Alfredo Rodriguez, who was a former employee linked and later to contest. Black Book described his custody and attempted obstruction, sale of conduct. And then there was another person by the name of Alexander Acosta. Alexander Alexander Acosta, okay, who was the prosecutor, the federal prosecutor, DESA report decision maker from 2007 2008. And then there was, of course, the Federal Investigation Bureau of Investigation, J.P. Morgan Bank was alleged, settled major civil suits. And of course, we know that that is now known as Chase Bank for those that bank with Chase. Deutsche Bank was apparently connected to JE. New York Financial State, the New York Financial State Regulator, that departments can't even read that word. The Miami Investigative Herald, Julie K. Brown. So all these are people that you guys could like, if you guys want to do your own research on the over 3 million files, just type in some of these names and you guys will get somewhere. Okay, so luckily for me, I'm able to access the archives through my galactic counterpart, Commander Valiant Thor, who is always here with me, giving me the transmissions, giving me the right archives to access and research so that I could put the presentation together. Before you all. Of course, with that having been said, now I could open it up for Q&A. Oh, and by the way, to all my new subscribers, I am the author of two amazing books, The Secret Government, Invisible Architects, and Our Cosmic Origin, both which restore very important information back to the Earth, especially the galactic history. Our Cosmic Origin is next level disclosure from what I've heard. So now I could open it up for Q&A. But before I open it up for Q&A, it would be nice to give some shout outs. I see that Sunny Lovely Light is in the house. Alina 8-8 is in the house. William Ryan, Diana 77 Unicorn, Jack Robert, Peggy Baker, Sylvia Vidal, Tino Petronzio is in the house. Royce Toys Comics is in the house. Melissa Harper, Starcadian, thank you so much for being here and being my moderator. Wolf Mother is in the house. Thank you so much for being my moderator. Greg is in the house. Donna is in the house. Jedi-OZ9 is in the house. Jill Hunt is in the house. Wade Woodruff is in the house. I met him personally at my last event here in Sedona. How you doing, Wade? Karina Lance is in the house. Project Skyfalls is in the house. Leah Renee is in the house. MJF. And last but not least, I'm going to try to mention somebody who I've never mentioned before. Ivan Kara. Is it Ivan Kara? Ivan Kankara, I think, is in the house. Greetings from Vienna, Europe. Thank you so much for being here, sister. And all 3,300 people that are in the house. All right. All right. I guess I'll take some Q&A. Please type your questions in capital letters so that I can bypass the chat. I do want to welcome and thank Susan K for her donation. Thank you, Susan K, as well as Edward Wuzik. Thank you, Edward Wuzik, for your donation. I guess I will start with the first super chat. Thank you, Joyful. All right. Joyful wants to know, when you die, do all 12 of your avatars come into one with you? Yes. When you die and you move up dimensions, 12 personalities collapse into one avatar. 12 avatars collapse into an oversoul, and 12 oversouls collapse into the monad. The end result is the monad in the 12D. Now, the next part of your question. And when a person passes on and they're in the fourth dimension to clear karma, is that the same fourth dimension that we are going in? Yes, that is the same fourth dimension that we are going in. Absolutely. Will the first solar flash happen before the 4th of July, 2026? That could be the case. It could happen any day now. Again, as I revealed in my presentation 2 lives ago, the Galactic Alliance, now known as the Universal Federation, is actually buffering some of the flares that are coming in from the massive corona hole in order to, first of all, prevent a premature ascension so that the first wavers could begin to integrate those energies. And that will cause the first wavers to ascend into the fifth dimensional Earth. So, yeah, the first wavers could be transitioning into the near Earth any day now. So it's very important, guys, to stay grounded. Stay grounded. Drink, you guys are reminding me to drink water. Can you guys give me a minute? I have to actually go get water. I forgot to get water. Now I do have a different stance. I think I do. Thanks to my good friend Randy, who sent me another one. Where is this thing at? Okay, and I do have a new stance. Well, I go get some water. You guys give me about 30 seconds. Where is that stands that I got from Randy? Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. He got me a new stance that actually works. I'm extremely thirsty. I forgot to get some water, but here you guys go, okay? Oh, there we go. This is working better than the other one. All right, there you go. We'll just do it like this. We'll go like this. There we go. I almost got it. There we go. I will be right back. Enjoy my little cartoon character. All right, guys, I am back. I am back. All right, let's continue with Q&A. Thank you so much for the super chat. I see I got another super chat from Carol. Thank you so much, Carol, for that. Ishmael, is there a portal opening up tomorrow, the 17th, through the 20th of March, where the old self dies and the new self awakens? Well, I hear that there's going to be some sort of an eclipse tomorrow. Um, who knows? That could be the first wave of ascenders. So, as mentioned, it's always better to be prepared, but I don't really know much about that. I do have another super chat from Julie Ponte. Thank you so much, Julie. She says, "Do you think tomorrow will bring in a new energy?" Oh, again, tomorrow. Tomorrow there's supposed to be some sort of a lunar, not lunar. Here, let me look it up. It's some sort of an eclipse. One second. Tomorrow, see what kind of an eclipse we're going to have. Okay, so on the 17th of February, there is a solar eclipse where you would have to. There's several eclipses. No, there's one eclipse. The first solar eclipse. Yeah, there's going to be a solar eclipse. So who knows what's going to be happening tomorrow? But it's always best to be prepared. Thank you so much, HJ369-V3, for your super chat. Is the Cabal in Sedona? No. On the contrary, the Cabal is not allowed in Sedona. Sedona is a huge intergalactic hub for the Galactic Alliance. No deep state military is allowed here. Only Solar Warden, Space Force, and of course, the Galactic Alliance. Dakota Mindscape, thank you so much for your super chat. If someone's is first waiver going into 5D, will those not in 5D be able to see them, or will they disappear from our life? That is a very good question. Well, if you are part of the first waivers and you graduate to 5D, remember, you're still going to be able to pop back into this reality. So you don't necessarily have to disappear entirely. Initially, it will seem like you will disappear, but then that's when you will realize that you could pop back into the reality by lowering your frequency. So that is going to be up to you. Thank you, Joyful, for your super chat. She says, why are you changing your wording to translating instead of ascending? Because it's a translations of reality. It's a translation. We are just translation, transitioning. They're all synonyms of us moving from one layer of the earth to another layer. See, the entire spectrum of the 12 dimensional earth reality is already here. The earth operates on different frequencies. So all we're doing is translating, right? We're translating from one layer of reality into another layer, if that makes any sense. And then the second part of your question is, so when a person dies, do they go back to the dimension that they came from? Like a star seed will when we ascend? Not necessarily. No, we are here to integrate this earth with the dimension that you came from. So let's just say that you volunteered from the Gaia earth, which is eighth dimensional earth. Then your job is to integrate Gaia earth into this reality. if that makes any sense. So, no, it's not like you're going to be going back to where you come from. You're going to be integrating where you come from into this reality. That's what's going to happen. Good question, though. I have another super chat from Jamie Larson. Will we know instantly when we've moved to the fourth dimension? If so, what will it feel like? Yes, you will know. Absolutely. It'll feel like you are awakening from a dream. That's how it'll feel like you are awakening from a temporary dream. Next question. Real Truth Lives 46473. Thank you so much for your super chat. Will Commander Thor accept volunteers to help humanity interface with the Greenland Agarthian entrance? Many of us want to volunteer. Much love and light. To answer your question, yes. Once we are, well, as integrators, right? The old souls, the starseeds, once we are ready to integrate realities, some of us have already volunteered to be the interface between the Agarthians and the Earth population. It's already written within our contract. So that tells me that you are one of those. All right. So a lot of these memories, right? These pre contractual agreements that we made before coming here are all going to be happening when we are ready to integrate, reintegrate. So the answer to that is yes, absolutely. Are the super soldiers going to take out Iran's government? That's a very good question. Well, the truth of the matter is that the regime in Iran, how can I say this, was installed by the tyrant of Israel. Okay, so that is part of how Israel is last. So that's when the regime will be taken out. Ishmael, is the realm of outer darkness an evil realm off limits to all beings? Or if we're talking about the void as in like outside of the multiverse, yeah, it is us, the realm that is separated from God's source, from all that is. So, um, for instance, the entity we call Omega Metatron, the AI overlord, and his consciousness, the Ahriman, became evil because it existed in the void. It existed in the realms of outer darkness. It was disconnected from God. And so in that regard, yes, it is what caused the conflict within the cosmos. So to answer your question is yeah, absolutely. Can I get a job with Valiant Thor? Good question. I'm sure you would. Once we all activate, we're going to be assuming new positions. JWD says, I want to meet good ETs. Oh, we will. And according to Commander Ashtar, first contact is supposed to be taking place here in Sedona in 2027. Real contact, physical contact. Okay, so this is going to be following Trump's big announcement sometime this year, before July, when he reveals to the world at large the truth of the alien presence. Thank you, Vanessa Crocker, for your super chat. Ishmael, if Sedona has a high vibration, what part of the US has the lowest? Well, currently Minneapolis, right? No, I don't know who has the lowest. I would say where there are a high concentration of crimes and human suffering, which is equivalent to the amount of archon entities that are around there, right? Sucking up the life force out of people. I have another super chat from Marty. Thanks so much, Marty. Namaste, Ishmael. We must send love to those children. Yes, we do. And those that have saved them. Absolutely. I agree with that. Thank you for mentioning that, sister. How does one pop from one dimension down to another dimension and then back up to a different dimension? How is that exactly done? That's a very good question. It is called the light body. Once we activate the light body, which is a fifth dimensional um, feature, fifth dimensional feature, the light body, through the modulation of frequency, we're capable of going from the fifth dimension through the lowering of frequency, dropping into the fourth D. And if we continue to lower the frequency, then we drop into the 3D. And that's how the galactics are able to make themselves visible to us, including their ships, their craft. All they do is they lower their frequencies about an octave or two, and then they become visible. All right. Ishmael, have we all worked together before? We have. Yes, we have. We've done this before in prior cycles, in other worlds, in other systems, galaxies. Um, you know, only the best, right? Only the best chose and were approved to come here to this planet where the final resolution between polarity duality comes, you know, comes to finality. So the fact that you guys are all here means that you guys all had it all very well documented in your cosmic resume. So yeah, we've done this before. We've done this before in other worlds. Absolutely. Has the 1,000 years of peace already happened? No, not yet. It will happen as soon as the trifurcation of timelines takes place. Once the trifurcation, right, the split, the convergence of multiple realities into only three lines, those that go into the positive or organic timeline will be experiencing the 1,000 years of peace. So, no, we are not in it yet, but we will be soon. We will be soon. Let there be peace on earth. I agree. Let there be peace on earth. Question: is Project Anchor happening August 12, where we lose gravity for 7 seconds, killing 850 million people? I heard about that. In fact, I think I'm going to be doing a presentation on that in about 2 days. Project Anchor, where they suspend gravity for about 7 seconds. No, it's not going to happen because the Galactics wouldn't allow it. But no, it's not going to happen. Now, is there an attempt by the cabal to do that? Yes, there is. There is this thing called Project Anchor, which is suspending gravity for 7 seconds. Uh, ultimately resulting in the death of millions. But do you guys think that the Guardian Alliance, the Galactic Alliance, the Universal Federation, the Y hats would allow that? No, it's not. It's not going to happen. I have heard of that though, and thank you for bringing that up. I've actually been intending to talk about that, but I want to go much deeper when I have more time. Perhaps I'll bring it up in the Wednesday night presentation. Ishmael, according to JP, there are ancient Egyptian artifacts inside of the Grand Canyon. Can you speak more about this? That is correct. In fact, there's a whole, I guess the best way to say it is there's also a whole group of Nephilim giants that are living within the Grand Canyon. And there's been reports that some people have disappeared when they have gone hiking or deeper into the canyon, especially if they're by themselves. So yeah, I mean, I could do a whole presentation on that, but not today. I only have about 7 minutes left of Q&A. Maybe next time, maybe on Wednesday, I could dive deeper into the giants and the artifacts within the Grand Canyon, as well as the project to suspend gravity for 7 seconds, which again, the Guardians wouldn't allow that, but it's always good to mention it, right? Does the Grand Canyon have a hidden sphinx? Uh, there's a lot of secrets, a lot of mysteries that are associated with the Grand Canyon. Again, it would probably, I would have to go deep into it, perhaps in a different presentation. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely touch on that a little later in a different presentation. No problem. Can you explain more about the Red Book and the Book of Q that you have referenced before? Well, about a year ago, for all my new subscribers, I did a whole presentation on the Book of Q and the Gospel of Q. So, for all my new subscribers, I would recommend that you guys watch my presentations going back to even 2 years ago. I dropped so much intel, so much knowledge on so many subjects. So, I would suggest that you guys do that. Now, the Red Book, I don't know if I ever went deep into the Red Book, but again, that would have to be something that I go into on another podcast. Yes, that's right. Hundreds of hours of info. Yeah, I mean, I think I've been doing this now for 2.5 years. Has it been more than 2.5 years, guys? Or I've been just going nonstop 3 times a week, giving you guys knowledge and intel and a lot of good information. So we have a birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to Charlie Weifels. Happy early birthday, brother. If I don't, since I'm not going to be around tomorrow. Military soldiers in Afghanistan encountered a red haired giant a few decades ago. That is correct. Yes. The giants are not just here in the States, they're all over the world. The Nephilim. A lot of the Nephilim survived the flood, unfortunately. And it is believed that a lot of them are in some sort of a stasis. They've been sleeping, hibernation, or hibernating for thousands of years. Maybe I should do a whole presentation in 2 days. If that's what you guys want me to go deep into the giant phenomena Wednesday night, right? We'll go deep into the giant phenomena. People are saying yes, yes, giant Nephilim. All right. Well, now you guys know the subject for this Wednesday night. All right. P Peace 24. Thank you so much for the super chat. Will the removal of the negative Iranian regime be concurrent with the removal of the negative Israeli? Yes, because they are one and the same. They are appearing as enemies, but in reality, the Israeli regime created the Iranian regime to uh, create the illusion of an enemy. But in all actuality, they are working together. um, are giants and Nephilim related? Well, there are different types of giants. The Nephilim are the um, hybrid children of the fallen angels, the fallen Anunnaki, who were forbidden to have children with the females on Earth. And then there's what we called the red hair giants, and some other, the Tartarian giants. Those are the good giants. But again, I'll go deeper into the subject on Wednesday night, just to clarify a lot of the information regarding the giants. Any update on Charlie Kirk, other than he was completely manipulated by the honeypot Erica, who, come to find out, according to today's presentation, was a correspondent of Epstein. Again, please share this with as many people as possible. TP USA is not the same anymore after Charlie's death. It was completely infiltrated by the Mossad. Okay. Well, with that having been said, I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. I will see you guys Wednesday for another deep dive into the giant phenomena. May the God force be with you all.